I'm Kevin Schindler.
My name is Emily Connor.
Hi, my name is Kian Ma.
Hello, my name is Josiah Canales.
And I'm Mr. Gorlick.
Finding the team had meant solving 3 problems: drying out the caves, bringing the best divers, and combing the hills for new entrances. Now that the 13 had been located, 3 possible plans emerged for bringing them out. The first, which was the most cautious and perhaps the safest, was to leave them where they were, ferrying in food, medicines, and company for 4 months until the rainy season ended. Then they could easily walk or be carried out across what would then by then be well-trodden dry passages. Unsworth thought this was madness. Seeing how nearly impassable the caverns had been at the start of the rainy season, what would they be like later on? How could anyone be sure that enough supplies would reach the team before they were sealed in by the water? What if someone got sick or developed an infection after the rains cut them off? Yet others disagreed. For now, the caverns could be dived and supplies could be stored. The rains were seasonal. They would eventually end. And when they did, exiting the cave would not be hazardous at all. It would be hard for the team and their families to wait, but they would have no reason to worry about how everyone would get out. A second idea was to keep up the search for a pathway down through the limestone hills. That would mean neither having to wait out the rain nor risking an extremely difficult diving exit when the boys were still so weak. Yet the hundreds, even thousands of people walking the hills, assisted by local guides, bird's nest collectors, National Park rescue teams, policemen, Thai soldiers, the Chinese Green Boat Alliance, even detailed topological maps of the terrain, helpfully beamed down by a Japanese satellite, were getting nowhere. The third choice was to dive the team out right away, but a cave rescue that required bringing 13 people, including a child as young as 11, none of them divers, 1.5 miles, 2.5 kilometers, through a cave system that, when flooded, is considered one of the most dangerous in the world, was infinitely beyond anything that had ever been attempted. Aronson, who comes across as blunt and tough-minded, was very skeptical. His first thought was that they're not going to get out. It's all about panic underwater. You can tell a kid whatever you want, but in an actual situation, if you've got a kid underwater, more than likely they're going to panic. So at first we thought it's not possible to dive them out. The chances of complete success, bringing all 13 plus every diver out alive, were grim. Going with this choice would decide the issue right away. One way or the other, yet the families would know that their children, now smiling, alive, send their love, might very well lose their lives in the attempt.
Number 1, and action.
And the clock was ticking. More rain were predicted. A Thai geologist and a Japanese irrigation specialist each realized that there was a new way to think about the water problem. The irrigation specialist told the Japanese newspaper, "It's more important to drain water from the cave, but it's equally important to stop the water from entering. If one could figure out where most of the water was coming from, one might be able to divert the streams before they flooded the caverns." The geologists managed to determine at least 3 sources and, working with the Japanese irrigation specialist, redirected them. While pumps could help dry out the areas from the chambers 3 to the entrance, diversions could lower the water levels deeper in the cave, creating some spots where rescuers could walk on dry land. So long as there were no new rainstorms, the diversion would buy the rescuers a little time. In Australia, 2 members of the Wet Mule cave diving team, Dr. Richard Harry Harris and Craig Challen, a retired veteran surgeon, were packed and about to go on a vacation trip. Stanton texted Harris, who was internationally known as an expert cave diver with specialized medical training, to ask him to take part in an impossible plan. Harris, an anesthesiologist, and Stanton wanted him to dive out with the boys and then, when it came time, to put them to sleep, one by one, so they would be unconscious through the rescue. Harris texted back that was a crazy idea, but he and Challen would come through to the cave to see for themselves. Harris and Challen had 45 minutes to unpack and repack. and head off to catch the flight to Thailand, from where they knew so far the prospects of a successful rescue were, as Challen said, bleak. SEAL divers assisted by retired SEALs began shifts of diving into the Chamber 3 with 3 tanks on their back and 3 tailing behind. From 3, the other divers took the extra tanks to key spots along the route. The more well-stocked resupply stations there were, the easier the convoy food and medicine to the wild boars and to prepare the supplies to assist the rescue. Through the experienced cave divers were managing to navigate the passages, and the tremendous trips required total, consistent attention. Mallison explained. You are swimming against the current on the way in, so usually the visibility is not bad. It is usually fine for the first divers, but the first divers is spinning, and that it creates eddies in the water, which stirs up the slit, and then the second diver doesn't get such good visibility, and then the third diver gets even worse. So by the time you'll get the 5th or 6th diver in there, and you'll down the nil visibility. And then when you get to the end of the cave, you turn around and come out, you are with the current. So anything that you stir up at the end of the cave is going to flow all the way out with you. So you tend to have much worse visibility on the way out. It's a bit of a combat course on the way out. Sometimes you can only feel the line, sometimes you can only see a foot in front of you. Other times, it's just nothing, it's just braille. It's quite a mentally exhausting experience.
Wednesday. Harris reached the cave and swam out to the boys. He realized he had been wrong. Once I had dived the cave myself, I could see that it would be impossible to dive the kids out in any other way except to sleep. Because it was a pretty tricky cave, it was pretty tight, 0 visibility a lot of the time. He knew that to ask an 11-year-old boy to just close his eyes, trust me, and come for a 3-hour swim in that environment is just not going to happen. He would panic in the first 10 minutes and would drown. But now he and Challen faced another dilemma. They were trying to figure out whether, as Challenge put it, sedation or anesthesia could possibly be done without killing the lot of them. An offer of help came from an unexpected source, Elon Musk. Musk is the innovative billionaire businessman responsible for the Tesla car and the SpaceX exploration company. Between Musk's large budget and the staff of highly skilled engineers at his disposal, it was just possible that he could find a way to diminish the terrible risk ahead. Thursday, Chamber 9. The 3 Thai SEALs and Dr. Pak were now living out on the sandy bank with Ek and the boys. Ek began to see the SEALs as like family. One SEAL in particular, unusually his name, Baitai, was made public, took on a special role. Baitai felt like a father to me, one wild boar said. In turn, the SEAL began calling each of the players son. Just as the team had felt Ek's protection during their dark, isolated days, they now experienced Baitai as a guiding, comforting parent. Baitai managed to bring a version of chess with him and taught his newfound family to play. Several players began thinking that they would like to train to become SEALs when they grew up. Even as the team and their SEALs bonded, other SEALs were busy ferrying gas tanks and supplies through the caves. 4 divers, 2 Thai and 2 foreign, set off on a 5-hour round-trip oxygen run.
Friday, 1:30 a.m. SEAL Captain Surawan was still in Chamber 3, waiting. The divers had gone for more than 13 hours. Finally, one diver emerged, saying his buddy was near out of oxygen. Minutes later, the body of retired Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander Salmon Gunnan was fished out of the water. How he died is still a mystery. Divers, even those who were on the scene in the cave, cannot piece together what took place. He should have been diving with a partner who could have saved him. Perhaps he hit his head. Most of the volunteer divers did not have protective helmets. Or perhaps some deadly gas had gotten into his tank. Gunnan's death highlighted the grave danger of using the SEALs, whose dive training had been entirely in open water, in treacherous caves. He was fit, brave, and had been a skilled diver, though he had retired from the SEALs 12 years earlier. But the caves were absolutely unforgiving. However, he lost consciousness. As he thrashed about in the dark water, his chances of survival dropped with each second until it was too late. The 37-year-old retired SEAL did not need to be in the cave. As his wife recalled, he loved doing charity work and being of help to other people. This is why he chose to come help rescue the wild boars and to assist his fellow SEALs. Governor Osatakanborn called him the hero of Tham Luang Cave. He was a hero. The motto of the American Pararescue Team is that others may live. They trained for years to be willing to risk, even to give up their own lives to save a fallen soldier or a trapped Thai soccer team. Though he was from a different nation, Lieutenant Commander Salmon Gunnan exemplified that motto. Everyone was stunned by the death, which only made the mission more urgent. If they gave their all, they could succeed. Then at least his death would not have been in vain. And as divers shuddered to and from the team, they realized that there was a silent, deadly threat in the air. Water still filled much of the cavern where the team had found shelter. Now the 13 wild boars plus 4 rescuers who were keeping them company were sharing the tight space. High water, people, confined space, limited air is not a good combination. The air should be 20% oxygen, and as of now, it was 15%. If that number dropped below 13%, everyone would begin to experience the same kind of disorientation that may have befallen Aronson. By 10%, they would faint, and at 6%, they would die. More oxygen could be pumped in if a pipe could be snaked all the way from the mouth of the cavern, but it proved impossible to bring the pipe past Chamber 3. Oxygen tanks were being opened in the chambers to release more oxygen into the air and to fight the rising levels of carbon dioxide. But they could never do enough. Diversion could temporarily hold back the water, but there was no obvious way to save the air. Musk had sent his engineers to the cave and was working out ideas for assisting. But what these plans would be, whether they could be completed in time, and whether they would work, as it was anyone's guess. The American leaders, Hodges and Anderson, along with the Thai SEAL commander, had reached a decision. They could not leave the team in the cave, and they could not keep hoping another entrance would be found. There was only one choice, the very worst choice: dive the team out now.
9 p.m. The Americans rushed to meet with the highest Thai leaders, the governor, admirals, the minister of the interior. Hodges faced the moment he knew must come. He would have to convince the Thai government, which had all the eyes of Thailand watching it, to approve a plan he expected would result in losses of life. The cave had claimed one victim already. He gave his honest assessment. There was only a 60 to 70% chance of success. To put those numbers more starkly, he expected that 3, 4, even 5 young people would not survive the trip. We either have a shot where we could get some of them out, Anderson insisted, or we leave them in there and there's a very, very high chance that none of them survive. He added, speaking as forcefully as he could, "This is our best shot." Would the government, which would be blamed if children died, be willing to take the risk? Hodges made a direct plea. He knew that emotions were running high, but in a crisis such as this, emotions are not your friend. Would this blunt American style upset the more gracious diplomatic Thais? Just the opposite. Hodges sensed that the Thai leaders were glad that the Americans had been so brutally honest, for that took the question out of their hands. The Thai government agreed that there was no choice, no chance to wait. They would have to risk the impossible rescue.